We have a great panel here today to dive into AI and how it's impacting insurance and the finance industry. And just as a reminder, if you have questions, feel free to scan the QR code. We'll field them throughout the discussion. On our panel, we have Mike Baker. He's Chief Technology Officer and Chief Information Officer at PGIM. They have about $1.4 trillion in assets under management. We have Kristen Bessette. She's Chief Data Officer at Zurich, North America, major player in commercial insurance with notable projects like Madison Square Garden, as well as the Hoover Dam. And we have Jude Schramm. He's Chief Information Officer at Fifth Third Bank. It's about the 15th largest bank in the US. They have close to $250 billion in assets. So let's get into this AI discussion and how it's impacting the industry. Let's kick things off with Jude. Jude, you have a business that spans commercial banking, consumer lending, wealth management, a lot of different areas.
Yep.
How are you organizing, coordinating, approaching your AI strategy?
Yeah, thanks, Niraj. So we started a couple years ago with our Gen AI strategy, and we really have centered it around four main pillars. We have AI focused on the employee base, where we've rolled out generative AI tools like Microsoft Copilot, like most companies have, with the focus to really bring up the IQ of everyone around just the use of generative AI in a normal work environment. We have a second pillar that is really focused on our engineering staff, where we've rolled out AI tools for engineers to really advance the way that they're using prompts and accepting it and really accelerating our ability to create product and get it to market. We have a third pillar that is really focused on our business processes. How can generative AI come in and really look at the way we run the company across all three lines of business and bring generative AI in to really think about the acceleration of efficiency and productivity of our workforce. And then fourth and finally is AI for our customers, and how are we introducing it safely and soundly to our customer base, not only to create a great experience for them, but to give them a chance to really create a self-service environment for all of our customers interacting with generative AI.
That sounds pretty comprehensive. Can you take us back to the early days on how you kicked this off?
Yeah, so in the very early days, really, if you think almost, really 18 to 24 months ago, which feels like the early days in this space, we really started with just internal experimentation. We have some leaders that we brought in from the outside that came in that are, I think, leading folks in the AI space. And we've been just really starting with self-experimentation using things like just generally available capabilities and tools, trying to learn how large language models even worked and how we could understand how they're going to make their way into the industry, and what are some of the risks that you have to manage through when you think about what does this really introduce as a new environment for us to introduce a technology that, to be quite frank, we didn't know a lot about. And so it was a very early days of experimentation, learning, but in a safe environment, so that we could then feel comfortable starting with the employees and rolling that out first. And we're kind of making our way from the employees through to the business process and eventually getting to the customer. That's going to be the last foray for us, because it's the one we have to feel the most confident about before we really turn something like AI, broadly usable across our customer-facing platforms.
Interesting. And how does it look from your eyes, Kristen, in terms of approaching AI? Being in the commercial insurance space, you have a breadth of customers from construction industry all the way to transportation to marine. You have a lot of range in product as well. Mm-hmm. Typical life insurance, casualty, property. How are you able to approach AI?
Well, we really think about it in terms of how will AI or any other tool help us achieve our business strategies. And so when we're looking at that and looking at the business use cases around each of those, we're thinking about, similar to you, how does it make our employees more efficient? How does it bring better insights forward? How does it help our customers manage their risk better? And so we try to take that lens through the way that we're deploying really any tools, but specifically AI, is how we can power further our business strategies and service our customers better.
Interesting. And how has it evolved or changed from your early days?
Well, I think similar to what you said, Gen AI really came out, well, even taking a step back, we've been using AI for decades, right? If you think of AI in the context of machine learning and some of the modeling that we've had, that's been widespread for a long time. The Gen AI really came out maybe, like you said, 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. And that's the piece that's really changed the landscape quite a bit. And so when you think about how quickly people can do things using those tools and how the things that are highly manual, highly labor intensive can be simplified through the Gen AI tools that we can give to our employees, it's really got a lot of ability to transform the way we do work and interact with each other.
Mike, is this the same type of process that you're pursuing in the asset management business? Once again, there's a lot of variety in terms of investment classes, equities, fixed income, real estate, private capital. I can imagine AI is different for each of those product groups, but are you starting in terms of employee process and then customer?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the categorization of how we think about it is very similar. So we look at a couple different areas, like the first being productivity. So how do we help our employees be more productive? And this is through things like Office 365, or 30% of the code that we generate now is actually generated by AI. Then we have other things like knowledge information. So if you think about what our wholesalers use to go out to the market, today they just use their phone with AI on it. They used to have to carry binders of information with them around competitive information, how our products match up with returns of other products, and that's just all online now. Automation is another area, whether that be through operations. If you think about, at least for the way we think about it, is we're in this second turning of AI. The first one was where AI was in this kind of contained black box, and you could talk to it. The second one is where we're actually marrying things like RPA with AI. And now we're actually able to talk through what's called MCP out to other things. So now we're building an ecosystem of automation through AI. And the third turning for us is going to be when these things actually start talking together. And then the last one is really around data and analytics. And this is where portfolio managers are now getting better insights into investment decisions. But for us, we always have a human in the loop today. We don't want investment decisions to be made automatically in the process and commit capital without a human in the loop. So that's very important to us today. And then the last thing I would say is, when you look at the importance of data and data governance has never been stronger when we're actually now trying to execute AI, because the quality of that data that's accessible through AI is so important.
You bring up a lot of interesting points, and maybe we'll throw it back to you, Kristen, in terms of this human-in-the-loop concept. Let's look at a core function such as underwriting. That is in a lot of different aspects in banking and insurance. Mm-hmm. Can you describe that process in terms of the human and machine learning interaction, and how long do you expect the human to remain in that loop?
We also think it's very important for the human to be in the loop. And if you think of the process of working with brokers or working with customers, there's a lot of information that's just coming into an underwriting process. And so a lot of what we're focusing on is just document intelligence, whether it's extraction or summarization or comparison, or just how do you help people manage that information exchange in a more efficient way so you can have better conversations faster with the brokers or with the customers. And so that is a very different capability that Gen AI has brought to the table versus maybe the more traditional AI, which might have been deployed in, say, a pricing model or something like that. Either way, I think it's very important to us. We also have human in the loop as an important part of managing our process and an important part of just understanding the risk and managing that, because we want our people to be the decision makers. And we expect that will continue for a while anyway.
Mike, on those points that Kristen has mentioned in terms of human in the loop and underwriting, how about in the investment strategy, policy making? Do you see that as one of the type of functions that the human will be in the loop versus AI tools for a very long runway?
Yeah, I don't see a time yet where the human will be replaced by AI in the sense of making those investment decisions. I think right now AI is bringing a tremendous amount of insights into that data, allowing us to make good investment decisions. But where we see humans kind of coming out of that loop to actually allow people to do other types of work is in things like operations and automation. So it's around being able to process, unstructured data that might come in an operations process where you want to automate that. But in the past, that was really hard to do without humans, but AI allows us to do that now.
Interesting. And maybe we'll hop to a different function. Jude, how are the financial advisors balancing AI and technology in their workflow?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, from a financial advisor standpoint today, we are probably still more in the more traditional AI lens of how we're utilizing the technology, because it's important for us to be able to make sure that we have the reliable, I'd say, technology that they've been using to understand models and how risk management's happening. We're giving that type of advice. I think as AI comes into our space and we use it, one of the things we've done is we've really tried to build into our policies and the procedures how AI can inform things like model risk management, and how model risk management can then inform the advisors about how they're actually going to be able to bring more of that capability into their decision criteria. But today, honestly, in the world we live in, it's probably a step too far from where we're going all in on AI and from a Gen AI perspective, because we want to understand how we're going to manage the risk and how we're going to make sure that we're mitigating that in the standpoint of like just the day-to-day interactions with our customers and how we're advising them.
Okay, and you previously mentioned that the customer experience in terms of pushing features or products is very early.
Yep.
Can you give us a percentage in terms of what percent of the financial advisors are using an AI-generated financial plan for their customers?
Yeah, it's a great question. So if you think about our financial advisors as they're reaching out to customers today, we use AI-powered ways to give them information. Mike talked about unstructured data. We have a lot of good information about our customers. So in the old days, in a financial advisor, they'd have a call list and a call tree, and they're just calling and calling and calling and calling on what I'd say is just generic product offerings. Today, with AI, what we're able to do is two things. We can give them very specific products that would help our customers based off of understanding what they're doing, what their spending habits are, what their buying habits are, those types of things. So instead of me just randomly calling you for any random product that we may have, whether it be a credit card or a HELOC or something, we now know that probably the most likely product that we can help you from your financial well-being is a second mortgage or a HELOC or something. And we can very specifically and intentionally call you and talk about those products with you instead of just random. And then the last thing on that I'd say is we're even taking some of that and putting it into our digital channels so that now it's not just a financial advisor calling you. You log into our digital channels, whether it be your mobile app or the web app, and that same product can get to you that way without the advisor in the middle, and we can deliver it in a couple different ways.
Yeah, I would add to that. If you look at on the Prudential side, on the insurance side, we're seeing some really exciting things where our call centers, as an example, AI is actually listening to the call and providing next best action, right? So it's a much better experience for people that are calling in, and for us, it's it's a time of need for our clients, and giving them a great experience is really important.
Yeah, we all should, I think, be thinking about AI in terms of driving the customer experience first. That's the lens that's going to matter most at the end of the day.
Another function that we'll talk about, maybe Kristen, claim processing. This seems like a very good case for automation. Can you give us a little bit of history where we are and where it's going with AI?
Yeah, I mean, claims is another area that's very information intensive, right? There's a lot of things coming in from customers, lawyers, doctors, all different parties, and the claims people are trying to manage all that information and also come up with the correct outcome for us and for our customers. And so it is a very rich place in a few different ways. I think, Mike, you mentioned operations. How do you make that more efficient? Because we have people taking those first calls. We have people bringing in that information from the customers. How do you manage your vendor spend, your legal spend? How do you look at all of those documents, like I mentioned before, for document intelligence? But there's also a real piece here as you look at workforce continuity. There's a real benefit in a lot of these tools in terms of consistency across a large workforce, as well as just how do you onboard new people more quickly because they have better access to that information that's right at their fingertips now that they may have had to know where to search for it or know how to find that. So I think there's several different places where this is making a difference in the industry.
Interesting. Let's pivot a little bit and put pressure on Mike to put on his CTO hat. And how is the tech infrastructure stacking up? We understand the financial service industry likes to customize their tech stack. How difficult is it to change into an AI tech stack?
Yeah, so at PGIM, we're going through actually a pretty large transformation. And that transformation, and AI is kind of embedded in that transformation. And I would say one of the most important parts of this is the data ecosystem that feeds AI. Having a standard governance process around our data and more standard platforms to give this new technology access to really is going to change the speed that we can move at and support our clients and create new opportunities. So it is challenging, right? Because with any company, there's quite a bit of technical debt that happens over time. So how do we actually focus on, making the right decisions to move a lot of that into a platform that's accessible to this new innovative technology?
And there's a lot of balancing here in terms of third-party tools versus internal development. Jude, how is Third Bank approaching that?
Yeah, we've got a by-partner build strategy, and you could talk about this for an hour, but basically the way I think about it is, in this AI space, there's going to be, I think, places where you want to partner very well, like I mentioned earlier with something like Microsoft or a Copilot. There's no need for me to go build Copilot myself. Where I'm delivering new capabilities to customers, like our chatbots that are going on our mobile apps and those types of things, we're looking to build on our public cloud because we've already taken and abstracted all of the services up to the mobile platform anyways, into the public cloud. So the accessibility to those capabilities tied to our AI platforms that can be directly plugged into those allow us to start to extend what AI and Gen AI are going to be able to do for our customers and create a much better and more seamless experience. And we want to own that experience and we want to deliver that to our customers. And then you look at like the back in the business applications, we were talking about this backstage, like every one of our partners that we work with are introducing AI into their platforms. Knowing how they're introducing it, how we can utilize it to maximize efficiency and maximize our effectiveness is the third strategy for us that we've got to be really good at because it's changing so fast. You got to keep in front of it, but the idea in those spaces are, again, I don't want to build something that isn't going to add value to the customer. And I want to find great partners where I can to be more efficient in the long term because they can plug into the modernization of our tech stack as well.
I do think there's a lot of these AI companies are kind of leapfrogging each other right now.
Yeah.
And you could be in, POC purgatory with kind of doing so many POCs and never seeing these to kind of real production or impact.
That's right.
So, we've taken the tact of saying, okay, let's standardize on an AI platform that we can buy, but also be able to build on top of, right? So we're using things like Microsoft Fabric as an example, as our data analytics platform that allows us to do analytics, but also allows us to do data science, allows us to do data insights. So it's kind of for us, it's the best of both worlds between buy and build that we're able to use that one standard platform.
That's right. And I think it's similar for us too. I think that the space is changing so dramatically. Things that were cutting edge 18 months ago are commoditized, right? So the cost of buying things just is really changing all the time. And so part of that challenge is to understand what that environment looks like and then really understand who your major partners are, who are the vendors that you really want those capabilities built in that you can leverage, and then where do you add that unique value from a building perspective that you can layer on to really drive your agenda forward.
Mm-hmm. We have a lot of different topics to discuss here, and one comes to mind I want to make sure we get to. It's probably on the tip of everybody's mind, compliance. Compliance, we'll put that on your table, Kristen. You have to deal with a lot of state-by-state regulators. Is AI helping reduce the compliance burden, or are new challenges overwhelming the kind of reduction?
Yeah, and I'm sure compliance is the most exciting topic of the day today. I think there are things that it makes easier and things it makes harder. I think, if you think of someone who's working in their job and there's guidelines that they're trying to do and regulation, you can bring a lot of information forward to those people in a much more seamless way. And so in that way, it helps compliance. You can, help build rules out that will have flags, those sorts of things. But I think Mike mentioned earlier, and we were talking about, this is a different way to model. It's a different way that you're interacting with the data, and it takes a different type of governance to actually support that. And so really all companies are setting up AI governance frameworks, AI policies, because it is a different approach. And the states are publishing their own new regulations or new guidelines for compliance that we're all working through. So I think it's an evolving space. I think it is a very important space that everyone is investing in, and we'll see how it settles out as we go through and learn through it.
And it's not just states. Right. So we operate in many jurisdictions around the world. Right. So EU AI Act, how do you manage that against California?
Exactly.
Right?
Versus New York.
There's so many going on, right? We look at it like a risk-based framework that we use around when we apply, ethical AI and the governance that goes along with it is based on a risk framework that we really focus on.
And we have a similar framework that's set up that way, so you can evaluate where you need a lot more rigorous evaluation of the models and where it's really a low risk, straightforward compliance thing.
We have some questions coming in, and let's get to maybe Gen AI usage on portfolio analytics. Mike, where are we today?
Yeah, so we're seeing our portfolio managers today. They actually, they used to have to, they come in and run the reports or look at their portfolios, and they look into the data and say, okay, where's my risk number? And today we're actually using AI to summarize that information for them. So they're actually getting an early look of their portfolios, like when they're driving into work, they actually, can actually see this, or it can tell them what their portfolio looks like. So the data insights are becoming very useful through AI, whether that be summarization of risks. The other thing that we're starting to see is the marrying of things like machine learning and Gen AI, because the data that comes out of machine learning fed into an AI model actually helps having more conversational kind of output to those models. So we're seeing a number of different ways that people are leveraging this technology from a portfolio management view.
In insurance, how do you view Gen AI in terms of the biggest potential impact?
It's hard to think of a way that we won't be impacted, really. I mean, because we talked about some of the operational ways. We talked about the portfolio analytics. That's going to be a big driver, the product innovation. So I think it's going to be, and you had talked about the employees, right? And how that's going to change your job experience. So I think it's going to be very transformational across. I think some of the biggest ways, really, though, is when you think of the customer impact and how much our people will get out of the manual tasks and be available to actually solve problems for our customers. That is really a huge difference maker in terms of the way the insurance industry can respond to the risk management needs of everyone. And so I think that really has a terrific amount of potential to make a difference.
Let's get a little insight here on the last point about AI implementation and maybe AI efficiency. How are you benchmarking it today? Are there any specific use cases, Jude, that you can cite?
Yeah, we think about the efficiency, and we've been at this for a couple years. I'm a longtime Lean Six Sigma guy, so we do run a lot of value streams within our bank, looking at the processes and looking at all of the aspects of where waste comes in it. AI for us is going to become the next evolution of how we think about creating that efficiency. And so we measure that in two ways. We measure it in terms of true productivity. How are we enabling either in costs to come out of the bank so we can then reinvest that cost back into newer things like AI? or revenue acceleration. Can we get to market faster? Can we get there more efficiently in a way that allows us to bring revenue into the bank quicker? So it's really both of those dynamics are contributing to how we're thinking about not just how AI will come in to those different ecosystems within the bank, but also how do we use that as a reinvestment mechanism back into continue to fund and grow the AI use within the company.
Just last point, Mike and Kristen here. The budget, how are you managing AI spend? It seems to be up and to the right. Where are you taking it away to fund those projects?
Everyone has a budget, and so I think we're all constrained by that, just like everyone else is in their job. And for us, we really look at, how does this help our business get better? And whether it's AI or other types of technology, how does this drive our business strategy, and what is the business use case? And we prioritize it in that way. So any of those could float to the top, depending on the use case, really. And but the important thing at the end of the day is those use cases that the businesses own and how it can help them with their strategies.
Yeah, I would add, we're looking at it in how do we go from run the business to change the business? And this is where, these last two questions actually come together. If you look at productivity, a great example of where our research team spends about 14 days doing a deep research on a competitive company, whether it be prospectus information or fund information. A lot of this now with AI, we went from 14 days to 6 hours, right? Huge productivity impact, and that allows us to now refocus the dollars that we would have spent on that on more impactful things. So we're, in a case, almost self-funding a lot of this through the productivity changes from run to change.